Fuck me, I'm live. All right. Hi. I see a few people are here already. I'm not doing real good. I'm not feeling real talkative, but I do feel bad about missing the last full moon live stream without announcing it ahead of time. And I've been wanting for a while to come on and apologize. So rather than missing a second full moon and just feeling like shit about it again, I decided to come on at least for a few minutes, no matter how bad this turns out to be. So, if anyone was actually looking forward to the last full moon, catching it live and waited around, I'm really sorry about that. I hadn't been doing well for a while leading up to it. Fucking, as that full moon approached, I was just dreading it because that was the first one I missed, and I wasn't sure I could do it or not. So as it got closer, I started just taking shit one day at a time because I was having a really hard time, and I just left it till the day of to make the final decision and tried not to obsess about it too much. Then when the actual day came around, I took it really seriously because I wasn't doing well. So I planned out my day that I'd have everything I had to take care of done by 9 o'clock, leave myself 3 hours to try to like pull myself together to do the stream, and had even told everyone like, I'm unavailable for that time, so that time should have just been free to try to pull myself together. Then around 10 or 10:30, something that I won't get into, the details are irrelevant to everyone else, but something happened that just fucked my night up. And left me in such a bad state that it was like inside, like in my internal landscape, a place where a certain amount of the more criminally insane aspects of myself are locked up. Yeah, let's just say all the guards at Arkham Asylum unlocked the doors and quit their jobs shortly before that live stream was supposed to go on. And so I still took the bit of time I had to try to pull myself together. And part of it was it would have been brutal on me to go live, but I still kind of tried right up to the last minute because I said before that I'll try to share some of the difficulties of being bipolar. When it came up to the last minute, not only did I dread doing it, but I realized that I was not going to be speaking from the better parts of myself. Some really nasty shit was loose, and I didn't trust myself. Not to let some shit slip that's better not dumped on the internet. So, last minute, I decided not to do it. And then, even though like Grizz and Ryan both said, don't worry about it, I think the exact quote from Grizz was that it's in my contract to drop out at any point when I'm not doing well. They both reminded me that anybody who actually cared about my live streams would be caring and sympathetic that I didn't do it. But I still felt like shit, and I tried for a while just to go on and even make a short apology. But time just passed, and it got all the way around to another fucking full moon. And I wasn't entirely sure I would come on tonight. But I figured anyone who actually cares deserved an update. And so shit's been rough. I mean, Fall's always hard for me. Every fall feels like a death. As much as winter depression's hard, sometimes the transition's harder. But recently, and I don't want to vent and I don't want to fish for sympathy or any of that shit. And I don't want to disclose any details related to other people, like in my life. So I'm not going to go into what the problems were. But over the past month, it hasn't just been my own madness. Like it just hasn't just been the cycle. It's been a combination of things. It's me falling into my fall cycle. And early on, like through September, tried to take on too much. I survive the best when I allow myself to be a shut in, not leave too often. And I pushed myself really hard in September. 3 weeks in a row, had an event to go out to. And looking back, I'm surprised. I did well at the actual events. Like I was there for my family, and even with the level of anxiety and difficulty I was having, I participated well and didn't bring anyone down. I was able to like hold all that shit back and force my mood around up for like force my mood up for other people's sake for a while. But it really took a hard toll on me. Then there's a few other things I really tried to keep up with. And then aside from that, there's also been a recent problem, like a situation outside of myself, something unexpected. Well, actually, a couple unexpected problems lined up, come in close around the same time. So I've been taking things day by day. And I have not been able to put any effort into the channel. For a while after the last full moon, I stressed about that, but for the past couple weeks, I've actually, like, I let myself off the hook because everything was too much. So I didn't even worry about this at all. I see there's a bunch of comments. I don't know if I'm going to get to them or not, but at a quick glance, it looks like a lot of that's you guys talking to each other. So feel free to just discuss whatever the fuck you want. I'm not sure if I'll get around to reading anything or not, but also I might, so feel free to write anything you want me to read. Fuck, I don't know where I was. I think I gave a basic explanation of why I haven't been around for a while. I know 2 videos have gone up since the last full moon I was in. The talk with Kemet is a one-on-one with me and him, and the talk with James went up. But that wasn't actually my participation during that time. Those were both filmed before the last, or before I missed the full moon streams. Those just went up later. And there are a couple people who had written in to speak to me. Some private, some for online. I just haven't been up to that at the moment. But in particular, okay, yeah, so I won't say who it is. But someone wrote in recently wanting to talk to me privately about something very difficult they're going through. We spoke once before. I assume you'll know who you are if you hear this. Like we spoke once privately before a while ago. And you said you had some things that you felt you could talk to me about, but didn't have anyone else to talk to. I'm going to try to get around to that soon. I don't know how soon it'll be, but as soon as I'm feeling like I can handle it, I'll get either Grizz or Ryan to reach out to you and set up a call as soon as I'm able. Fuck yeah, maybe we can spend an hour crying on each other's shoulders. Fuck. Apologies for that. That's disgusting. One of Ryan's live streams he did a little while ago after not having been on for a while, he commented that it was very surreal how it had gotten more normal going live than after a break. I just had that really strongly. Been a while since I've done this, and I spent a lot of the time since I've been on last, like wondering what the fuck I thought ever getting involved in this in the first place. Now I was aware that it's shitty parts of me active. Like I often say, you can frame anything in a good or bad light. And I know this dark shit can frame anything as shitty. So I've tried not to think about the channel much because I didn't feel good about myself when I did. It's been a while. And it feels weird to be sitting here. And I see like a bunch of you are my friends now. That's nice. But this isn't private. It's just on fucking YouTube. I already fell into crying and had to blow my nose live. All right, so I see one of the most recent things. Grizz says it's good to know you're still kicking even when it's rough. So yeah, I didn't know if I would have anything to say at all or if I would just choke up even trying to explain, but I thought some people might want to know I'm still around. All right, I'm going to go back to the beginning, take a look at who's here and what's been being discussed. Looks like Grizz was the first one here. So HG Tutor says, I feel possessed. I can hear things coming through my computer and phone calls. Others can hear it also. What do you think? Okay, I think that's sincere, although in a way that could be a joke. You're supposed to fucking hear things coming through your phone and computer. Others can hear it also. Well, what kind of shit is it? Like on a phone? Yeah. What is it? If others are hearing it also, are we talking about some sort of, no, if it's computer and phone, it's not like some sort of other call overlapping, but what kind of stuff are you hearing? Okay, I'm going to scroll down and see what else you've said about it. And so Grizz says it's always better if you're not the only one who hears the thing. Tudor says, LOL, I was drugged years ago. I've noticed unusual things happen ever since. I am not trolling. Okay. Others have heard it. Okay, so yeah. Well, I never had long term effects from drugs. I've known other people, especially with LSD, that have had long term effects. Like sometimes people can have a long term effect from a drug, but if other people are hearing this, then it's not a mental illness or a leftover from a drug, unless you have a strong enough personal charisma that you can create, like make other people pick up on your hallucinations. Nolan's here. Hey, Nolan. Good to see you. How you doing, man? I'm sorry that I didn't get around to recording anything with you before I dropped out. Maybe once I'm doing a bit better, and if Ryan has the time, the three of us could get together. Well, as soon as I'm feeling up for it, I'd love to record with you again when I'm able to. So Tudor says I'm not enjoying it. And Grizz wants to know if you can get the sounds you're hearing recorded, and you said you're not hearing voices and you'll try to record it. And then Tudor says alien contact, dead spirits. And Tudor says, I swear I want out. The clouds have shaped in them clear visions, objects over and over, shapes. I'm not high or drunk. I think demonic energies and spirits are in the airwaves around me. My auric field has been ruptured, I believe, by the drugging, by toxic chemicals. I've been done over good and proper. All right, well, when it comes to any of that fucking phenomenon, I'm very open-minded. I've had lots of extreme experiences that were clearly psychosis, or, I've had lots of experiences that were clearly psychotic breaks. I would classify them as such, but I also don't know what exactly a psychotic break is. So I'm open-minded about people having experiences that are entirely in their head, or obviously drugs cause you to have experiences. Mental illnesses can cause you to have experiences. But then I'm also open-minded about everything that I have no way of not knowing for sure. I'm open-minded about all kinds of other realms of reality, other dimensions, aliens, ghosts, all that shit. So I'd have to hear a lot more about what's going on with you to have any more to say on that. So Grizz says, Merc, go into the day maintenance of how you cope when the inside is amok. I think that'll help folks. I don't know how to. Explaining anything feels really difficult right now. Internally, I am so fucking exhausted. I feel like I've been wrestling dragons for 6 weeks straight. But the most important thing is to achieve mindfulness, which gets harder and harder when it's like intense bipolar shit. Like when that fucking bipolar rage takes over. When you're just flooded with that Mars energy and it just wants to knock away your awareness that you are not your own thoughts, you are not your emotions. So easy to get caught up in that shit. You gotta become mindful of what fucking state you're in. And then just taking as much control as you can. And I haven't kept full control. I've had some times where I managed to achieve mindfulness and to realize that I was that I was operating under control, that I did not want to be doing what I was doing. But a couple points, it was like observing something Like in a dream when you're not actually controlling yourself. Like when it seems that you're just a passenger, just an observer. I got stressed out to the point where to achieve mindfulness, had to become an observer. And then once you do that, you get very minimal control, where like you just take it one step at a time and just get as much control as you can. I don't know if I've told this story before or not. Actually, fuck, I barely remember anything that I've said on the channel right at the moment. Whole past's a fucking blur. One point long ago, I think maybe it was, yeah, it was my first cycle. So after I'd been manic for months, gone into total psychosis, had to get locked up against my will, had that horrific experience, came out of it and went into my first 2-year depression. And at one point I was on, what was it? Seroquel? Or, anyway, they had me on this fucking drug that turned me into a zombie. Like I would sleep 23 hours a day. Just get up to, like, someone would have to wake me up, set food in front of me for me to eat, and I'd eat it like half awake. Take my pills, just pass out again. And during that period, this is like, it's a ridiculous thing to admit. But I was suicidal, like extremely so. Knew I couldn't kill myself. Was looking for those ways to kill yourself that don't necessarily count. Taking a little bit too much of a risk. Or I remember once trying to swallow my own tongue. I don't know why, but for some reason, guess I figured if I was just playing with to see if you can swallow your own tongue, that it wouldn't necessarily count. But then another way that I sort of tried to commit suicide in a way that didn't really count, and fuck, this sounds stupid to say it, but I was in a dark place and I'm very open-minded about the nature of reality. I tried to commit suicide by putting on Nightmare Before Elm Street every night as I was falling asleep. And it was while I was in that fucking phase of just like taking the pills that just had me sleeping all the time. And I thought, like, if you can get that into your, because there's that rumor, if you die in your dream, you die. And the whole plot of Nightmare on Elm Street being him coming into your dreams and killing you in your dreams. I watched that night after night while falling asleep, trying to get myself to have a nightmare about Freddy Krueger, and not actually thinking that like Freddy Krueger's real, but thinking that if I could get an intense enough nightmare and with that idea deep enough in my head that I could have a fucking heart attack or something and not wake up. After a couple weeks of doing that, where I was sleeping all day and I'd get up, go downstairs, eat, come up, it was like the only thing I would put on is I would just put on Nightmare on Elm Street, and like that was the only thing I was watching. The little bit of time I was awake, and I'd drift off. When I finally had a nightmare about Freddy Krueger, it was fucking horrible. I had this really fucking vivid dream. I remembered really well when I came out of it, even though I was so groggy all the time. But I was at some fucking school. like that really resembled a school I went to when I was a kid. And fucking Freddy Krueger shows up, and instead of trying to kill me, he wants to kill the kids in the school. And I'm the only person there who can stop him. So now I've got this really realistic dream going on where I'm fighting Freddy Krueger, but he won't hurt me. He's just trying to get past me. And like even in the dream, I was suicidal. I would have been fine with him trying to kill me, but he wasn't trying to kill me. He's trying to kill a bunch of fucking kids, and I was the only person there. So now I'm stuck fucking fighting Freddy Krueger. And I remember I had the kids in the gym of the school, and I had, yeah, the symbolism of being going out behind the gym with someone. Freddy Krueger was trying to get in the gym. I was out behind the gym, the kids inside. I finally got him down on the ground. I had a big pair of scissors, like from one of the teacher's desks, and I was stabbing him in the chest. And it was like he was really strong, but I could hold him down if I put all my effort into it. And I was just stabbing him in the chest, and it was just doing fucking nothing. And that part of the dream felt like it went on forever, like the way time really stretches in dreams. And it was just almost like Sisyphus, this endless task. But I couldn't stop because, unlike Sisyphus, it wasn't pointless. It was like I either had to hold Freddy Krueger down and continue stabbing him. So also, I think it was like as long as I was stabbing him and wrestling him down, that was somehow keeping him weak enough, but it healed instantly, constantly. So it's like if I stopped actively fighting him, he would get up, go into the school, and kill all the children. And so I felt like fucking stuck there. And it felt like it was going to go on forever. That it was just this Sisyphus task of I don't get to die. I just have to wrestle with Freddy Krueger for I don't know how long. Otherwise, other people get hurt. Yeah, I've gotten to where I've had so much, like, aside from just depression to deal with. I've had that internal Hulk come out and I've had to hold him down. I've had some nasty shit get loose, and it's internally, it's kind of like fighting a villain. Let's see. So meditation music says handsome beard. Thanks. It's funny how we talk about someone growing a beard because growing a beard is what happens when you stop doing something. Growing a beard isn't doing something. Shaving is doing something. So this isn't any kind of fashion choice. This has just been hot summer weather's gone, and I haven't wanted to put the energy into shaving. Oh, Ann Smith's here. How you doing, Ann? I hope much better than I've been doing. And says, "Don't worry about us, friend. Please, love." Yeah, when I would feel bad about not coming on, I mean, like the dark shit would say all kinds of stuff. Like sometimes the dark shit would try to convince me I'm an asshole for having not gone on and put pressure on me. And then at other times, just instead would really fucking rip me apart for ever having done it. Or would be like, what the fuck are you even worried about? Nobody gives a shit. You going live doesn't matter at all. Um, but the wiser parts of me, my better angels, through all this, would tell me just that you folks would act exactly like that. And yeah, while I've been, if you can achieve some mindfulness with this, so that it's like it's different. There's different things. It's like something can be loose inside of me, or something can be sitting in the driver's seat. And that's two different things. I've fallen into, at some points, things getting into the driver's seat, which usually is pretty rare for me, but it's been rough. So some stuff has gotten into the driver's seat. I've lost control at a couple points briefly and got it under control before fucking anything too much up. But also times where they're in the driver's seat as far as the thoughts go, like they're running everything, but they don't have full control to act. And so it's like I can keep my action under control, but I can't keep under control what is running through my head. But both of those, when it's really running the thoughts, I consider that it like being in the driver's seat. But there's been a bit of that. But more of it has just been some of this shit has been running loose inside. And it's like all the better angels are exhausted. And all the shit that I think it's best not to let act in the world had been pent up for a while and got loose. So they've had more energy. They've been louder. But I do think at one point, when they were shitting all over everything I've done on the channel and like making me upset about having disappeared, you were one of the people, Anne, that those quiet voices in the back, the better parts of me said, used you as an example and said, you know full well Ann Smith's going to say not to worry at all, take care of myself. Oh, yeah, and wait, now I see Andrew's comment is the next one. And yeah, this too, Andrew. Good to see you, man. Put yourself first. We miss your videos, but understand why you can't always make them. Hey, Dan's here, says with you, brother. So, yeah, quietly in the back, the better sub-personalities have been telling me that's how everyone would respond. So Grizz says that's a YouTube achievement you just unlocked. I have rambled too much to know what that's in reference to. Fuck me. Yeah, I just had another wave of what the fuck was the yester me who got me into this thinking. So Diamond Roses, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you're doing better than I've been doing. Says, don't be ashamed. It's part of being human. I can see your pain. You are not alone. Thanks. And, well, parts of me feel shame. They're in the minority when it comes to my subpersonalities. Overall, I'm not ashamed of being bipolar anymore. That whole judge not lest ye be judged. There, but for the grace of God go I. As far as I'm aware, I didn't choose my genetics. I didn't choose the situations I was put into. Sam Harris would argue. I never had a choice. And yeah, I love the idea of the mad pride movement, except I don't like the word pride. I don't think being bipolar, whatever that means, whether there's spiritual or magical elements to it, or whether it's all in my head and the atheists are right. Either way, it's a mix of a lot of difficulty and a lot of euphoria. But I don't think it's something we should feel ashamed for. Okay, trust the process says, what's the point of living if we end up suffering, depressed, no matter what? Someone please answer this question. Grizz says the point is not abandoning the rest of us, at least. All right, I don't feel in the best state to describe, explain that, but I get suicidal every year. Twice I've had suicidal depressions that lasted 2 years straight. So I've wrestled with that so much that I know I have extensive volumes within me on that subject. I just don't feel particularly capable of accessing that right now. And the other thing is to discuss the point of living, given all this suffering and depression. I have answers that relate to the atheist side of that. Like if you're an atheist, I have things like reasons to give. Or if you're some sort of spiritual or religious believer, I have reasons to give. And if you're agnostic, I have reasons. I tend to try to look at everything from as many ways as possible. And when it comes to something, even when I'm inclined to lean towards one side or the other, like more that there is a God than atheist, it's like I have an atheist subpersonality. I have more subpersonalities that believe in some sort of extended metaphysical reality. But I'm aware I don't know the answer. And so I try to find I try to think it through from both perspectives. Like Peterson says, to really think, you create in, internal components that take different sides and like argue. But aside from that, I develop internal components, allow them to develop their philosophy as fully as possible. Then I look for where the Venn diagrams overlap. And so if there's a reason not to kill yourself that applies to the atheist world view, and that same reason appears in the believer worldview, it makes it even stronger. And usually when I'm talking to somebody, I don't know what the fuck reality is. I'm extremely aware of the limitations of my perspective and understanding. So when I talk to other people, some people conversations turn into, you tell me what you think life is. And then I try to convince you that life is actually what I think it is, as opposed to what you think it is. I try not to do that with people, with the exception of certain things that I find fit in sort of everywhere. There's a couple base things that I kind of stick to. Like being honest all the time, or as much as you can, is the right thing to do. Like that's something I'll really try to make people see. Or that it's better to choose not to kill yourself is something I will try to talk someone into to a certain degree. Or to aim at the good, however you define it. But beyond that, whether you're atheist, agnostic, or some form of believer in what form, usually if someone wants to discuss, like, what's the reason for me not to kill themselves? I'm not going to try to project my worldview on you at all. The route I usually try to take is, hey, tell me your worldview. Okay, now talking from the parts of me that understand that worldview, let's discuss, the issue of suicide without you having to switch over to my way of looking at anything. So if I don't just suddenly get overwhelmed by this and stop, if you will write further down whether you believe in God or not, I could probably do better at discussing the point of living if we end up suffering, depressed, no matter what. But I'll start with this because I think this one applies to both. Yeah, I'll fall back to Peterson because most people who watch this are familiar with his work. So when Peterson said that, like, he talks about how in the Garden of Eden, when we got the knowledge of good and evil as a punish, like I think it's presented in the Bible that it's like as a punishment for taking the knowledge of good and evil, pain and suffering, like we were cursed with that. I've always thought looking at that, it's that like ties it in over to the religious side, but also just that purely from a sort of evolutionary, like even if you just believe in evolution and like neuroscience and whatnot for the suffering and depression and like biology, like the knowledge of good and evil is higher consciousness. The idea is the animals don't have knowledge of good and evil, and that taking on higher consciousness, being able to evaluate morality, that it's not necessarily the curse of higher consciousness is suffering, but that the catalyst for the development of consciousness is suffering. Suffering may not be like a flaw in the system, and suffering may not be a punishment as much as, and like, fuck, do we hate hearing that when we're fucking suicidally depressed or extremely suffering? That it's not a punishment, it's not, but like, think about it. Consciousness, basic awareness. If you had no suffering whatsoever, if everything was equally blissful, why would you develop any higher consciousness at all? Why would you seek to understand reality on deeper levels? Why would you develop like fortitude, courage? Why would you even think deeply about anything? If the Garden of Eden was just like no danger, everything's wonderful. You can just be perfectly content, feeling fully fulfilled, just sitting there eating whatever is just lying around you with no effort. The harder my life got, the more I developed. And it seems to me like the only thing that pushes consciousness, or like even integration, like don't even Nietzsche and Carl Jung say that like a person's not going to find their organizing principle or isn't going to undertake the process of active integration work until you're like forced into it by suffering. So I think suffering and even depression is what drives us to develop. Or like Jonathan Haidt's idea of anti-fragility. And I know he looks at it all like Yeah, just his idea of anti-fragility, I think that might work on the spiritual level as well. Um, and for anyone who anyone who doesn't know that, it's the idea is like that a fragile object, like a glass, breaks easily. And then there's like non-fragile, like a plastic cup, which won't break. But that there's a third category that's actually anti-fragile. So fragile means damage breaks you, like makes you worse. Not fragile means like you won't get damaged. But anti-fragile means you will actually be improved by damage. And so an example of that is our immune system, that if it's never exposed to anything, if it's never stressed or attacked, it doesn't develop. Our immune system's anti-fragile. He says that children and us psychologically are actually anti-fragile. And I mean, look at what the horrible shit we put people through, like whether it's you want to look at it like Fight Club, the horrible shit he put everyone through, or whether you want to look at it like military training. Those people are anti-fragile. They go in, are exposed to difficulty, come out stronger. And I think that may apply to the spiritual dimension as well. That as souls and our awareness and consciousness, like not just our psychology, but the more mysterious aspects of consciousness may be anti-fragile as well. And so, and yeah, fuck, like I still know all this shit when I'm struggling. It pisses me off to even have to say this. Like the parts of me that are fucking, yeah, pisses me off to say it. But I know that the majority of me really thinks this is true. Suffering isn't being done to you, it's being done for you. I mean, look at the suffering we'll put ourselves through when you get something out of it. A tattoo. Suffering a woman will go through for a baby. Consciousness exists beyond this world. Or even just if it doesn't, if you want to achieve deeper states of knowing, then perhaps the suffering's a favor being done for you. Maybe we even agreed or requested or begged to come down here and have these problems. And Grizz's point is good. Says the point is not abandoning the rest of us, at least. Which reminds me of in the Doctor Strange movie, that one point when, what's her name? The cool bald chick's dying. They sort of slow down time and talk for a minute, and she says, "You still don't get it. It's not about you." We can fall into feeling like reality is all about us, as if it all exists just for us, so we complain about everything that doesn't suit us. It's not all about us. Maybe some of us have to suffer more than others. Like any hierarchy, the higher the peak, the wider the base. Like Peterson says, hierarchies overall, from his point of view, produce good things, but they dispossess people at the bottom. It means a byproduct of this system or the foundation of this system is suffering. Sometimes when I'm really suffering, I look at it that way. Or the way in Alan Moore's Jerusalem, the demons are tread under to create this reality for us. That maybe some of us suffer a little more than others, And that in that suffering, whether we're aware of it or not, or can understand how, we're part of the base that holds up some of the other beauty that others can enjoy. Diamond Roses says it's how you see what we call bad or pain. It's the story we add to the events. That's why we suffer. The fact that we or you are here on earth means we are here to experience life, good and bad. Excellent point. And it is amazing the ability we have to alter our experience, even our experience of suffering. Fuck, who is it who talks about it really well? Blanking on the guy's name. But also, often, what's worse even than the suffering, and this is where I said earlier, like, you got to learn to get mindful while you're. Okay, first of all, you have the baseline suffering, whatever it is, physical pain, grief, depression, anxiety, trauma. But so you've got that pain or that emotion. But often it's what we add to it is even worse than just it basically is. I think Sam Harris makes this point well about anxiety. He says that how we frame it has a profound effect on it. Like that if you can just sort of achieve a mindful experience the now and just try to pay attention to the pure experience. Sensations of anxiety and panic that you might have at a social event or before being stupid enough to go live on YouTube. Those actual physical sensations aren't that different from the sensations you have on a roller coaster or in a horror movie. And the context around it. And he's got an excellent point there. Or the way he points out that the physical sensations you feel while you're training, while you're weightlifting, like the burn that you will feel in your muscles while you're weightlifting. If you just woke up in the middle of the night feeling that way, and the story of it was different, that it was some sort of illness, like feeling that burning and intense, like really it's pain while lifting weights when you're really pushing yourself, would probably be unbearable. But when you're choosing to do it, when the story is, this is good for me, it's making me stronger, you can actually enjoy it and get a lot of adrenaline going with it. So what we do with what we call bad or pain is important. So you become mindful, be aware of what's bad in your life or what pain you're having. And see what power you have to reframe it or deal with it differently. Or just, especially like, yeah, you're saying depression. Like, fuck, it's okay to be depressed. I know, like, that's not what normal society tells you. It's not okay to be depressed. Like, you didn't buy the right product or take the right pill, or you didn't try hard enough, or like you're supposed to be happy all the time is a story being told all the fucking time in this world. Like, you should be happy all the time. And then when you're not, they can market things to you easily. And the other people who have fallen into that and want to pretend to be happy all the time or convince themselves they are going to tell you it's not okay to be depressed. But like, fuck that judgment. Like, this is seriously a part of the human experience. And what do we know about what's okay or not here? Like the way Peterson says, get your room clean before you go judging society too much. Maybe be even more careful about judging the nature of reality. Maybe there's a higher level than this that obviously chose to make depression a part of our experience. Because fuck, when you're depressed, and like this is one thing I've gotten very good at because I had to, or I wouldn't have survived this long. When I hit that absolute suicidal depression, I don't feel guilty for feeling it. As much as sometimes there's a bit of shame comes in, not too much. And overall, I usually am pretty good about achieving the okay, hey, like this is the part you have to play here. Depression's a part of it. What the fuck's wrong with that? Because if you're suicidally depressed and you're constantly telling yourself that's pathetic or wrong, it just makes things so much worse. Okay, so just because says we all need a break to keep it real. So thank you. I appreciate this. And I see Nolan Watson said, no worries, Merc. Whenever you're up to it, I'd be happy to talk again. Just because says winter coming doesn't help at all. Yeah. And I appreciate everyone's understanding that I disappeared for a while. I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to start doing more soon. Or maybe not. Maybe soon won't be that soon, but. And I want to make no promises at all. Like, who knows what the fuck's going to happen. But I do still intend to come back to this as soon as I'm able. All right, I want to try to get more caught up to something recent in case. I don't know how far behind I am, and if I'm answering shit for people who are gone, and if there's new comments further down. I do kind of just want to scan. Oh, wow. There's all kinds of shit here. Grizz said Freddie works for an October full moon episode. Yeah, you know what really sucks though? Last month, the full moon was on Friday the 13th. Like, what a fantastic night to do a live stream, and that's the one I fucking missed. And Andrews and Grizz are talking to each other. Okay, Asa Winchester's here. Hey, Merc, I was a little concerned when you missed the last full moon, but I completely understand. Ryan said to check back in a few weeks. I'd really like to talk to you. Okay. Yeah, and since you're here saying that, then earlier I spoke about you hypothetically without saying who it was. So yeah, Ryan did let me know you'd written in wanting to talk to me, and yeah, I really want to talk to you too. As soon as I'm feeling able, I have just been dealing with some horribly rough shit. Although I understand from what you want to talk about, like maybe it'll be perfectly fine if I'm extremely depressed too. So yeah, check back in a few weeks. Especially just in case if I'm not doing well for a couple weeks, it could slip my mind for a while. So yeah, check back in a few weeks. But if I'm feeling better, and also right at the moment, it's not just that I'm struggling so much. I'm struggling a lot. I got some fucking shit I got to try to keep up with, and yeah, I've got some other stuff going on. I'm trying to juggle. But as soon as I'm feeling able to and I've got the time, either Ryan or Grizz will reach out and set up a call for us again. Sorry to hear like that shit's been going rough for you, and yeah, we'll lean on each other as soon as I can. Nolan says that's to Grizz, but it applies to what I just said about Friday the 13th. Griswold Grimm, that's funny. It's also my birthday today. I was born on Friday the 13th. Interesting. Okay, well, I'm glad I did fucking force myself. Holy shit, yeah, and I've been rambling for an hour now. I really thought I might only come on for 5 minutes, but there was a strong pull to come on, even if it was really short. I'm glad I came on for your birthday, so happy birthday, man. And everyone else wish Nolan a happy birthday. He's a good friend. And that you were born on Friday the 13th is cool. You ever looked? Oh, you must have. But have you ever looked into the older idea of Friday the 13th? My sleeping pills are really kicking in, and I'm smoking a little more weed than usual. So my brain's not working optimally at the moment. But unless I'm confused, the original story for why Friday the 13th was considered unlucky is very interesting. Isn't that when they killed Jacques de Molay, or whatever his name is, when they rounded up a bunch of the Knights Templar? Have you ever looked into the old history of why Friday the 13th was famous before the movies? F. Gilbert says, keep breathing, dear Merc. Thanks for sharing. Never feel guilty for looking after yourself first. Okay, thanks. And also, by the way, like, you folks who turn up here, this community is amazing. Like, with all the nasty shit all over YouTube, I'm amazed that this pathetic hermit lunatic can come on here and get so much understanding and support. Someone asks, have I dabbled in Stoicism? I've listened to a few things about Stoicism now and then. Like years back. Wait, am I fucking confused, or is Seneca Stoicism? Remember a few years ago, looking into him quite a bit, unless I'm getting the fucking name wrong. But I'm not really accessing the memory of that at the moment. My mind works in strange ways. In different moods, my memories work very differently. Not really accessing much about that. Wait, am I right? Is Stoicism like along the lines of Seneca and the idea of fucking swallowing a toad first thing in the morning or whatever, and the idea of meditating on the losses and being prepared for the worst? And also by taking seriously the losses, you become more grateful for shit. Yeah, that helps me a lot. Is look for what you can be grateful for, especially when you're like suicidally depressed. So, for instance, even when I'm really suicidally depressed, I can just say, well, thank God I can be suicidally depressed in the place I'm in. Fate's provided me with, I'm staying in this Awesome old house built by my great grandfather out in the country. I have hot and cold running water. I have electricity. I have access to the internet. I have peace and quiet. I have disability so that I can just sit and suffer. I've got fucking books, a bed. Like, if I have to be suicidally depressed, thank God I can be suicidally depressed here and like this. Thank God I'm not out on the fucking street or in a mental institution or in prison dealing with this. Thank God I have cigarettes and food. So you look for what you can be grateful for. So Gregory Witcher says your beard is looking sweet. To me, it's just a tribute to my laziness over the past 6 weeks. But hey, glad someone likes it. Carl Wilson 79 says check out Jordan Peterson. This channel was founded on. I don't know if that's a joke, but this channel was originally founded on Jordan Peterson shit. Yeah, I've listened to and read quite a bit of his stuff. Hey, Adela, darling. Hey, if your birthday was yesterday, happy birthday to you as well. Holy shit. And Andrew, it's his dad's birthday. And he was also born on Friday the 13th. A lot of synchronicity. F. Gilbert says John Vervaeke's channel gives one a better grip on the feeling of loss of meaning and purpose. Helped me to climb out of a very dark place. I have tried a bunch of times to get into John Vervaeke's series. I've listened to a couple interviews with him. Every time I go to jump into his big series, something interrupts it. And like nothing, I'm reluctant. I don't want to say anything bad about anyone, but just with John Vervaeke, I find the subject matters and like what he has to say is very interesting. But there's something about his mannerisms, his personality. Not that I dislike him in any way. I don't dislike him, but I find him hard to pay attention to. He's not a speaker that grabs my attention. Actually, I was just saying this to Grizz the other day, and the opposite of that is just recently I've listened to a bunch of interviews with Douglas Murray. With him, it's the opposite. His last two books he wrote about identity politics and the strange death of Europe, I'm really not that interested in those topics at all. But just recently, I've sort of been charmed by his style of speaking, and I find him like him as a speaker draws me in. So I've been listening to subject like too much about subjects I'm not that interested in, just because I kind of got hooked on having his voice in the background while I worked, and like I like the way he thinks, and like I don't even know how to define it, but there's something about Douglas Murray I find him very enjoyable to listen to. It's just unfortunate the topics he's been spending all his time discussing, and the way in so many interviews it's the same thing over and over. And then yeah, John Vervaeke's the opposite, where everything I see of his, I'm very interested in the subject matter, but a mix of like just coincidence. It seems like fate's been trying to keep me from getting into it, but it's like sit down, watch 20 minutes of his first of that huge lecture series, and you get a phone call or something comes up, I got to turn it off. And I just don't have that drive after, like, oh, I've got to hear his voice again. Where I find like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, Douglas Murray, Alan Moore, like they can talk about absolutely anything. And if I listen to them, I get in a kick occasionally where I don't even give a fuck what they talk about. I just feel like hearing them discuss something. Well, actually, I will say with it seems like fucking Douglas Murray doing a shitload of interviews and podcasts at the moment because he's got a new book out. And unless I'm getting things mixed up here, the only chapter in his new book that I'm interested in is the only one that I haven't heard discussed at length. Every other chapter, every interview goes over them all. So he's discussed the madness of crowds, apparently. Yeah, and I don't feel inclined to go through the effort of buying the book. But he goes over like the identity politics shit. And he's got a chapter on women, a chapter on gay, a chapter on trans, whatever, race. And those ones all get talked through a bunch. And then he says, and I have a chapter on forgiveness. And I find of all the chapters, that's the one that's been discussed the least. And of all of the chapters in that book, that's the one I'm most interested in. And I saw him saying something else, that there was one other thing he thought of putting in the book, but didn't. And I forget why he said he didn't put it in the book. But it sounds like there's something he's been thinking about that he hasn't gotten around to speaking about much yet, or at least I haven't come across it. And it's like he considered putting it in this book, but didn't. And that was mental illness. And that I would love. I have no idea what he's going to have to say about mental illness, but I would love to have him, like, to hear more about that. So yeah, I'll just throw this out onto the internet. So if Douglas Murray wants to come on and talk to me at some point, I would love to talk to him about those two things in relation to the new book he wants to plug, the two everyone else seems to ignore. Because I think forgiveness is one of the biggest topics that needs to be discussed as well. And I imagine me and Douglas Murray would have very different takes on it. The same way that Peterson and Sam Harris are both huge on truth, but have different takes on it. So I would love to discuss that with Douglas Murray. But also, if he's been looking to get into the issue of mental illness or mental health and hasn't yet, I would love to fucking talk to him about that. So if he ever wants to come on Sorting Myself Out and hears about this in some weird way, and you want a good partner to bring up mental illness with, because the whole idea of you should have somebody from the group you're discussing. I think we could have a great conversation. And like Douglas Murray says, his only card to play in identity politics is gay. My only card to play in identity politics is insane. And I'd be happy to play my lunatic card to have a conversation about mental illness with him. Okay, some of this you guys talking to each other, so I'm going to try to get further down. Dog Bark says, as you always say, it's okay to not be okay. Always a helpful thought. And Ball Keith says it's a good thing some people suffer greatly. Depression and finally suicide is just weeding out the weak. I consider cancer a favor. Well, I'd say that I bet if you had any understanding of what people go through who actually attempt to commit suicide, you'd see that it's not that they're weak, it's that they're dealing with a kind of weight that the average person couldn't possibly carry. Yeah, like I've had plenty of friends that have scars on their wrists, so they've always got to wear wristbands, or known people who get tattoos to cover their scars, or people who will always wear long sleeve shirts. When I see someone with scars on their wrist and they're still around, I see that as a sign of strength. I had no idea. Like, I knew somebody very well who had depression before I became bipolar. I tried to be understanding with that person, but I had no idea the intensity depression could actually come to. Understanding it now, I regret not having been able to be more understanding with that person. So Ian Smith says, I deliberately suffer every day, make myself think about difficult things because it truly does lead to growth, understanding, forgiveness, all the qualities that don't develop in its absence. Yeah, I find depression often makes people more understanding, forgiving, increases empathy, can be humbling. Gregory Witcher says life is about relationships. True, although there's also some amazingly deep and profound living that can be done in isolation. It's not for everyone, but can be a truly exquisite experience. You find a lot of meaning and satisfaction in total isolation. Grizz, yeah, and I'm gonna start skipping more because I don't know how far behind I am. So I'm just gonna. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna stay on. So sorry to everyone that I don't read what you wrote or don't respond if you had a question. Grizz says, I forgot how much I like it when you stream because of the people that show up. Thanks for coming on. Well, you're welcome. Yeah, it's interesting. Looked at the chats to some other live streams. They're nothing like they are here. And Smith says, understand just because. Oh, okay, you're responding to something higher. I'm schizophrenic, even with that suffering. I want to go deeper. I need to. It's where healing lies for me. Yeah, there's something to. There's ways to embrace the pain and go deeper into it. Okay, I don't know what this is in context to, but Gregory wrote, Dave Rubin agree with that. That's funny, no matter what it was you were responding to. Hey, Shane Allen's here. Yo, hey Merc. I've been working a job that's hard on my legs, just running, moving all day. At the end of the day, once I sit down, there's pain, but it almost feels like a healing. It's odd. Yeah, and I've had a bunch of labor jobs in the past where you just got to move so much, and until you get caught up and in shape at the job doing it long enough, it's just so much pain. But yeah, it's a good pain, or from exercising too much, like lifting weights too hard, especially after having not done it for a while. Because of the context of that pain, you can experience it so differently than if it came from some sort of sickness. Okay, so this is. So Gregory says, Merc, you have people all over the world here for you. Hey, you're in South Carolina. Cool. Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like, that's really sweet. But at the same time, I don't want to come fishing for support on here. I realized when I was doing really badly, like at some points that thought just, not even a desire to do it, but the thought just occurred. Like, you could just go online right now and share some of what you're going through, and you'll get a bunch of sympathy and support. Um, but I don't want too much of that. I don't want to be ever driven by that, like something self-serving to be coming on. I don't want to me being involved in this channel to be about getting support or compassion or understanding. Yeah, I guess I have issues with asking for help. And so I have an issue with being motivated to go on here for the sake of getting something back from the audience. Adela Darling says, Mark, good to see you. Sorry you're in a low. Remembering to be thankful helps me. Yeah, when I can do it, it helps me too. Being thankful that things aren't worse, being thankful for the things I have. And I mean, depression can kind of take all the joy out of everything, but you really make yourself, think about, well, what would it be like if you didn't have hot water? Because I have hot water this winter, and I didn't really last winter. You can find little things like, yeah, fuck, if I'm going to suffer like this, at least I can have a hot shower. At least I have the fucking internet. But I've also been struggling enough that there's been a fair amount of time where I haven't even been able to manage that. Or I just sort of had all the monsters running loose inside and was using all of my effort just to keep them from acting or making things worse or just keeping them off the throne. Oh wow, okay. So yeah, Gregory here says built by your great grandfather. Wow, I think that was a while ago that I said that. So I'm really far behind. Okay, so Gregory Witcher said 2,000 internet points to whoever gets the Mercury Murray interview to happen. Okay, yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I will take from this channel. Like I said, I don't want to be coming on using this channel to get sympathy or support from people. But as much as a large part of me really doesn't want any of this, my streams to get too big or anything, like doesn't want to be famous at all. The one thing that makes that adds appeal to the idea of the channel doing well is like when I look at someone like Joe Rogan, the one thing I'm jealous of him. I mean, not like that sort of negative jealous, but the one thing Joe Rogan has that like I would love to also have is that he can just talk to almost anyone. I thought it was great talking to Paul Vanderklay and talking to Tim Freak on here. And if the channel ever did surprisingly like blow up big enough that I could arrange talks with interesting people, that's one thing that I would absolutely love. So there'd be a bunch of things I would hate about like becoming too famous. But if I could get the one upside for me would be if by doing the channel I could eventually do things like talk to Murray or Sam Harris or Alan Moore or all that. Fuck, I've got a huge list of people I'd love to talk to. That's one thing that, like, yeah, I would absolutely take from this. The chance to talk to interesting people. Because also it gives back just as much because that's something for the channels and that content's there. But yeah, absolutely. If any of you want to just like send a bunch of emails telling him to come on, or if anyone has any connections and anyone could set up an interview with Douglas Murray, I'd love to discuss forgiveness, which everyone else has been skipping over and I think is in his new book. But also, I would love, he said he thinks the topic of mental illness needs to be discussed. I would be open minded. Like, I'm not looking to debate with him, but I would love to hear his thoughts and I would be happy to share my thoughts. I'd love to have just a good faith, open-minded, honest discussion with him on the topic of mental illness. I would absolutely love that. So if anyone can make that happen, Gregory's gonna award 2,000 internet points. And actually, fuck that. If someone can set that up, there'll be some sort of prize. I don't know what it would be. But sorting myself out will find a way to give you some sort of prize if anyone can make that interview happen. Okay, so I think I'm caught up. So Gregory Witcher says we need to chat. Ryan has joined my Discord server called Doorsy. Are you Doorsy as folk, Mercury? I don't know what Doorsy as folk means. And then says, give me a deadline. Deadline for what? But yeah, like if you want to chat sometime, I'm not sure how long it'll be till I can start handling some calls. It's really hard for me to talk to people, especially for the first time. At the moment, setting up any calls immediately will be too much of me. And since not everything is just my bipolar at the moment, there's some problems going on. And I don't know if those are going to get better or worse. So I can't exactly predict when I can start handling some calls. I'll just trust it'll happen when the time's right. And you said the Murray interview, so that's the the deadline for someone setting it up? No, I don't think there needs to be a deadline for this contest. It's just first person who can set up the interview wins, and I don't care how long it takes. And I have no idea what prize we'll come up with, but we'll figure something out. Wait, did I read Andrew, our founder, and the reason why I'm here doing this and why Ryan's doing what he's doing here? Said, good night, everyone. Merc, thanks for the nice hangout. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. And it was good talking to you the other day. Let's talk again soon sometime. Or, but yeah, and you're easy. I know you so well. Maybe if I have a good day sometime soon, we could even just have a chat and record it for this channel if you feel up to it. But yeah, have a good night. Gregory says you need to have interview questions ready. Um, I could have interview questions ready for Murray. Yeah, I could do that. And actually, if as much as I said earlier, I don't intend to buy his books, I'm not interested in anything except the chapter on forgiveness, really. Yeah, if someone could get me an interview with Murray, I'd read that chapter so I'd be a bit prepared to discuss forgiveness. But I don't know. When I talked to Paul Vanderklaan, when I talked to Tim Freak, or when I talked with Kemet or anyone else, I've never had anything prepared, and it always went pretty well. I think I could wing an interview with him pretty well if I was in the right mood. But no, I would. Yeah, for those two topics, I could have some questions ready. Okay, so Gregory Witcher says that's why I need a deadline, get the schedules and stars aligned. I don't know. My brain's feeling burned out. I don't know if I have anything more to say. Grizz, what's his deadline? I'll leave that up to Grizz. Just because says forgiveness, the final frontier. Gregory says, Jocko, there must be discipline. I think Jocko's a great guy. I haven't listened to that much of his stuff, but he is so far from me. And I don't mean that as like even that I dislike him. Um, Not about dislike at all. Just we are so extremely different. I have a weird sort of chaotic discipline at times, but I'm an extreme. Yeah, I live in chaos. My approach to life is so different from Jocko's. I wonder what a conversation between me and him would be like. So Grizz says by winter solstice or no prize. Okay, so if someone can arrange an interview with Douglas Murray by the winter solstice, they will win a prize. And me, Grizz, and Ryan will figure it out. Are we done for the night? Actually, I skipped a whole bunch of stuff to get down to the bottom. So I'm going to sit here quiet for a couple minutes. If you asked something that I skipped over, ask it again. If a few people have some questions or comments that they want me to read, I'm going to sit here quietly for a minute. And if a couple things pop up, I'll read and respond. If not, we'll just call it a night soon. So Gregory says I will be on my harmonious Discord. Ha ha ha, get it? No. But I've taken sleeping pills and my brain's kind of worn out. And I don't really use Discord. I don't fully know how it works. I take a look at the sorting myself out page, but Dan says with you in spirit, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. And actually, one thing I will take, because I know a few of you, especially some of us who've talked privately quite a bit. Yeah, a couple people have told me they have sent thoughts and prayers. I'll take that. That's just a good thing. I think that's something that's good for the person doing it. And it's not something that, like trolling for sympathy gets addicted. People do that. It makes them do it more. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to fall into that kind of thing. But I think accepting thoughts and prayers, good energy, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, for any of those of you, do think of me from time to time and hope I'm doing well. Whatever your spiritual or metaphysical ideas. Yeah, there's some stuff that's been really rough going on, and I'm open to any thoughts, prayers, energy, that stuff goes better. So Griswold Grim says, I'm calling it on this end. Battery is going. Thanks for the stream. You're welcome, buddy. And he says, thumb this for the channel. Thumb it hard. Good energy. And yeah, so we'll wrap this up. Gregory Witcher says, taps, plays. And Smith says, I'm really happy I got to see you. I hope it was okay for you too. Peer support is not looking for sympathy. It benefits all parties. Actually, yeah, I was kind of dreading coming on to do this. No, this was nice. Nice to hang out with you guys again. And who knows? I don't want to make any promises or get hopes up about me coming back on too soon because I just don't know. But on the other hand, I'm not holding on to any negative outcome. I'm open to being surprised at how much better things go from here forward. So maybe it won't be so long until I can do some more streams. So I don't know when exactly I'll be back. I will go back to trying to at least make the full moons. See if maybe I can get 11 out of 12 of them in a year. But if I ever just don't show up on a full moon, sorry about that. All right. So thanks to everyone for coming to hang out. Hope everyone has a great moon cycle. Until we meet again, Lunatic love to all.